were passed on to the bidder, and the minutes of the meeting and the agreements which were drawn based on those minutes were completely in favor of the bidder. So here again it's a very simplistic test, it's a juxtaposition test of comparing the same document between two departments, which can lead you to get some better information. We found a similar case where an employee had submitted two reference forms of two completely distinct companies who had referred to that employee as a very good, hardworking, honest employee. And you will be surprised, friends, that when we see the paper one at a time, you can't really make out that there is any difference, or whether they are the same. But when we saw the two reference letters together, at that time we found that the exact grammar was the same, the spelling mistakes were the same, the format, the structure, the reference letter, and even the spelling of the name was exactly the same made by two. So where it was very obvious that the two letters actually came from the same source. So there was some element of fictitiousness at least in one. Eventually we found that both were fictitious. Similarly, fictitious receipts. In fact, I will show you one case where these are two receipts which you can see on the screen. They are actually coming from independent parties, but if you see the format, the structure, the way things have been written, the date, everything is the same. They don't have telephone numbers, they don't have registration numbers, VAT numbers, nothing they have. You can make out that these two are actually the same parties at the same place. Now let me give you a little idea of how to check a signature forgery. Now we are not experts into handwriting and signatures, but these are just two simple rules which you can bear in mind. One thing is to the simplest way just a sec. Sorry for the break, friends. I believe there was some technical issue, but I believe it has been sorted out now. Okay, friends, sorry for that break. There was a little technical issue, but I think we are back to normalcy. So let me explain to you very in simple words how really can one go about a signature forgery. Actually, it's basically it's work which an expert only can do, but we should have enough knowledge to be at least able to question something and refer it to an expert. Now there are two things which one can do. One is of course the very simple way, that is somehow get a document which contains the actual signature of the person whose signature is being verified for the purpose of forgery and compare it. Now in that case, as you can see on the screen, so friends, sorry for the technical delay again, but I hope this time it goes through properly. There are two simple things that you can do as far as a signature forgery is concerned. First, and the simple way, is to compare a document containing the actual signature of the person whose signature you want to verify and see whether it looks at least reasonably similar. Like see the example which I have given you, it's very clear which was a genuine signature and which was a forged signature. Now this can be possible only when you do a proper comparison, and which we don't do most of the time, but it may be worthwhile to do so for big things like agreements, will, and certain documents where the signature is very critical. Then the second thing, and this is something which I think all of us must know about signatures, is that two signatures can never be exactly identical. In fact, friends, I would urge you to try it out at home also. You try and write your signature about 5 times or 10 times if you like, as many times as you like, trying to make sure that it is exactly identical. Believe me friends, you will never get two identical signatures, and if you do, it means obviously that the other signature is either traced, or it is photocopied, or it is done by an expert forger. So remember, this is a very simple principle. No two signatures can be exactly identical, they can never be congruent. This is because it is a human element inside you. There will be natural blanks, there will be natural lifting of the pen, difference in pressure points, all these things count, and you will be able to definitely identify if two signatures are exactly identical. Now I actually wanted to also do some cases in fraud detection, and unfortunately over the webcast the animation is not really possible. So I will try and cover them in the best possible way. Uh, I have on my screen a phishing fraud in drilling. Now here what you have is, as you can see, there is a corporate office, there is a, this is the process which is there in a drilling company. Let me explain to you in a very simple way. What you see here is a drilling company which has an off-site rig where drilling operations take place, and the arrows that you see going down are those arrows which indicate that this is underground drilling. Now in this, that golden item which you see at the bottom is nothing but the drilling machine, which sometimes can get stuck. Now if you see this, sometimes the equipment gets stuck. In this case what happens is the company has to appoint vendors. Now there are what they call fishing vendors who have equipment, who will use that equipment to actually fish out this equipment which has been stuck, so that the flow of oil can be uninterrupted and smooth. Now in this, friends, what happens is, as auditors, these are the two normal probabilities that you will come across. I mean, most of the time you will, as auditors, think of these two possibilities. One is bias in selection of vendor, that means you may select a vendor because you may get some interest or some kind of consideration or concession from him. Or second thing where fraud can take place is where you may make an unnecessarily high payment, or excessive rates may be actually given to him for the purpose of doing this work. But friends, the fraud investigator or the forensic accountant will go far deeper, in the sense he will use his imagination, because in forensics this is what is important. You have to keep an open mind and think of the various possibilities that can happen, and these are some of the possibilities that can happen in phishing. Say for example, as you can see, was the drilling equipment actually stuck? Sometimes payments, huge payments, and these are large amounts of payments which are made even for a situation where there was no impediment at all for the drilling, but this situation is created artificially. Then sometimes there is, if the machine or the drilling machine was stuck, it was not so stuck so that it was an impediment. The oil could still have flown almost 90% or 95% of the original flow, but even then they would employ a fisher to remove or extricate that particular machine, so that that expenditure could be made and some money could have been taken back. Then was the fishing done at the right spot? Now these people, in order to increase the time of fishing, they will fish at 3-4 different places till they come to the right place, again so that the vendor is benefited. Then another way is, was the fishing done for those many days? Like, there is no hard and fast rule that in fishing you will get the machine which has been stuck in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. It can go on and on. So what the vendor has built, is it commensurate with the number of days that he has carried out the drilling operation? And was the fishing operation ultimately able to retrieve the machine? That is also something which normally auditors don't go to check. Lastly, whether the correct equipment was used. Like when you come to office, you don't need a truck to come to the office. You can come by a cycle, scooter or a car. So similarly, when you want to take a small drilling machine which has been stuck, you may require a smaller hook, you may require a smaller machine, or if it's a very big thing, you may require something bigger. So whether, and the charges obviously will change depending on the size and nature of the equipment which has been stuck. So whether the correct equipment has been used also becomes a question. And was the fishing entire assignment called off after a certain time? Now what happens is, very often it becomes cost detrimental to actually keep on digging for the machine which has been stuck, because you may not be able to retrieve it, or it may be actually stuck in such a way it is not possible to retrieve it. So there has to be a decision taken whether the operation should stop and maybe a new drilling line has to be opened, or whether they should still continue to retrieve that. Now this is again such a subjective decision that it is putting good money after bad money, and if the decision is taken later, that much more expense, that many more resources are actually spent by the company. So all these are different areas or avenues where fraud could take place. Now this again, I brought in this case study only to give you an idea that an auditor has a relatively limited scope based on the kind of work. Again, it's not that an auditor is doing anything wrong. His mandate is different, his perceptions are different, whereas a forensic accountant's perceptions are wider, and he tries to think of many, many more things which are possible, and that's what gives him the penetrative edge. I want to talk about a simple thing like a Birbal trick. Now friends, what is this Birbal trick? There are actually so many different ways by which you can conduct investigations, but I thought that to make it a little interesting, let us talk about a Birbal technique. Now, I am sure all of you have heard of Akbar and Birbal. Akbar and Birbal were legends in our history, and Birbal, as you know, was the wisest minister in Akbar's Darbar. Whenever Akbar had any problem, he would always go to Birbal to help him to solve it. Now, this was a case where there was a check which was actually stolen from a company. What you see on the screen is a check which has been stolen, and some money has been embezzled away, and there were some 5 or 6 people in that finance department who could have had access to this particular check. Now the job that was given to us was to find out who could have done this. Now for this we referred to this Birbal trick, which helped us to find out where and how we could nab the culprit. There was this is of course just an anecdote, I don't know whether it is true or not, but it fits in well in this. Akbar and Birbal were watching a musical program, and as you know, in these musical programs there are people who get very carried away and they say ooh, ah, wah, wah, and all these kind of things, you know, they say to show that they understand and they appreciate that music, that classical music. So Akbar was very amused, so he asked Birbal, okay, Birbal, can you tell me out of this entire crowd, which are those people who are genuine music lovers and who understand this music, or and which are those who are just saying wah 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 just to show the world that they appreciate and understand this classical music. So Birbal, being an ingenious man that he was, he said no problem, I will do it. So what he does is he goes on the stage and he announces that King Akbar is getting disturbed by all your wah-wahs and all your utterances when this music program is going on. So he has said that now there will have to be complete silence, and any person who even says a single wah or wah-wah will be beheaded immediately. So once this was done, he said okay, he asked the musician to continue the program. The program continued, and this time there was a deathly pin drop silence. And as the program continued, somewhere the musician went to a very nice musical note, and there was one funny little man right at the back who couldn't resist saying wah wah. So Birbal pointed out to Akbar that particular man and said, this is a true music lover, because even at the threat of death he still says wah wah. So that means he is a genuine music lover, the others were all fake ones. Now what is the message in it for us in this particular case? It says that the natural traits of a person always remain if under any circumstances, however best he may want to disguise it, stop it, curb it, they will come out. So the same would be applicable to a person who has written this check. He would have certain traits which will come out anywhere. So we consulted one handwriting expert, and the handwriting expert said this is the exercise that you have to do. You give 5 checks to all the 5-6 people who are there in your finance department, and one person, they are not to be shown this check, but somebody will read out the contents of this check and they will be asked to write down those contents on the check, and then we will examine them. So when we did this, to cut a long story short, there was only one person who wrote the word Mr. If you examine this closely, this Neeraj Kumar is preceded by one MR. Now most of the others directly wrote Neeraj Kumar or Neeraj Kumar, but they never wrote Mr. So that was the one person who wrote Mr., because some people are habituated to write Mr. when they write a check. Then the way he wrote the decimal places by putting that slash and equal to was peculiar only to him. Even the dashes and crosses after the only, after 64,000 only, were peculiar and unique to that same person. So these were the natural traits which came out from the person who had written this check. So this was, you can say, a forensic approach or a different approach to find out how a particular financial wrongdoing had actually been undertaken. So friends, since we are actually running out of time, let me come to also the issue of opportunities in forensic accounting and fraud detection. Now, in forensic accounting, these are the various kinds of assignments. The whole world is open for us as forensic accountants. First is, as I told you earlier, with corporate governance and with the new Companies Act and with all these changes, heavier responsibilities on the management auditors, the consulting in risk management, corporate governance and internal control systems to the corporate world is going to phenomenally increase in the foreseeable future. Fraud investigations for general crimes, general financial crimes, manipulations are also going to come up in a very big way, and there will be opportunities in this as well. Then, as I told you earlier, non-financial investigations are also going to come up, like as I told you, life insurance cases, or forget life insurance cases. I know of one case where there was a complaint from a lady employee in the office saying that somebody had given to her an abusive letter, and she was threatening to sue the company and go to the police and make it very difficult. So here also the ethics counselor and the audit committee, they pacified her and they said, no, we'll organize an internal investigation and we'll do it, and they took help of people like us, forensic accountants, to do so. And believe it or not, it is possible to find out by doing a documentary search, evidence, and different digital forensics that are possible in today's world. So even non-financial investigations are going to come up. This is an opportunity also which will come up in a big way. Then we go to a stage prior to actually a fraud having been committed, to do a fraud detection assignment where there is a suspicion, like there is a unit of an investor which is not doing too well. You may get an opportunity to go and find out whether the unit is genuinely not doing well for business reasons, or whether it is not doing well only because there is some siphoning out, embezzlement, or malified intentions of the local management there. Then as an offshoot of this, fraud prevention related assignments are also going to be very necessary, because the consciousness of fraud is at the maximum now. I find that what was the situation about 20 years ago and what it is now, there is a sea change, and now management, directors, everybody is really concerned, conscious and keen that fraud be prevented, and therefore this is one area where there is a lot of scope of work coming up. One area which probably many of you may not be aware is that people are required even for conducting background checks, particularly the HR department, particularly even purchase department, when you want to deal with third parties, vendors, because it is very imperative that you deal with people who are not in a shady business or in drug business or in, let's say, wrongful lines or money laundering. So again, this is an area where antecedents and confirmation of the good bona fides of a person with whom you are dealing, this is an area where fraud risk assessments and forensic experts may be used. Insurance claims relating to specialized investigations, loss of profits, stocks, life insurance claims, I already mentioned this earlier. These are also areas which have been untapped. I would suggest that even chartered accountants look at these areas, because the kind of work that you do, you will really love this kind of work, you will enjoy this kind of work, and it has a sense of fulfillment behind this, and you will also be, I think, paid reasonably well. So this is an area where I think an opportunity must be really tapped and proceeded further. Banks are going to require us in a big way for stocks, debtors, borrower related fraud. Then, as I said earlier, training assignments are now increasing by the day, because as I told you, consciousness of fraud is also increased phenomenally, and corporates want their staff to be more alert, more prepared, and they want to minimize the fraud. And research. So friends, these are the kind of assignments, and I am probably not included many more. I am sure that there are many more areas, but I can assure you that forensic accounting and skill sets of forensic accountants are going to increase, opportunities are going to increase at an exponential rate in the foreseeable future. Fraud under the Companies Act has also been defined, and now if you look at the definition, it is a very strong definition, but as I said, let us not go into it in this particular webcast. We will have a separate webcast only relating to fraud under the Companies Act. Opportunities to investigate could come to CS from, these are the entities who can appoint you. One is the audit committee, the management itself, investors or stakeholders, CFOs or CEOs of companies, or vigilance and internal audit departments. Now these are the different people at different levels at which you may probably get to get assignments in forensic accounting. One small little point I would like to clarify is that there is a difference in expectations of people who appoint you. Like if you are going for this field, I beg your pardon, if you are appointed by, let's say, the police or EOW or RBI or some other major statutory body, there you are normally appointed after the crime is committed. So in these cases what happens is that they usually need information on modus operandi, who are the culprits, the quantification, evidence, obviously evidence that will hold in a court of law. And in all these cases they usually want this, how cash was transferred from one entity to another to a third entity and how it was routed back. In fact, this is in fact the most complicated aspect in all these police, crime and high level related investigations, where a little bit of experience will be required. But these are also very nice and very interesting cases, and where our knowledge base that we have as chartered accountants comes into tremendous use. In that case, I would recommend that there should be strong investigation discipline. You must ensure that confidentiality is very well maintained, and document the matter well, because you may be asked to represent the prosecution in court. In case of corporate investigations, everything is the same what the police and these other statutory bodies may want, but there is one addition, and that is that they would also like to know what are the controls that have failed and where preventives have to be brought in, and more importantly they also want to know whether there are any other crimes, any other connected fraud which or suspected leakage which maybe the other statutory authorities may not be concerned with. So there is normally a wider mandate when you are going in for corporate investigations. This is just a little difference that was there between the two kinds of statutory and the corporate investigations, but essentially the modus operandi and the culprits and the quantification is what really people are looking for. Now, how can you get these opportunities? First is, I would recommend that the institute's course, and that to our own committee of information technology, it runs this course on forensic accounting and fraud detection. It's a 5-6 day course. I would recommend that as and when it happens, do get that certification, because that helps you to get visibility. That means people will know that you are a certified forensic accountant. And the advantage of this FAFD course is that once you successfully complete it, your name will be put up on the website of the institute, and anybody wanting to find out which are the forensic accountants certified so by the institute will be able to go to the institute and check the names. I believe that certain banks have already started specifying that ICAI certified forensic accountants may apply and empanel themselves for forensic accounting assignments. So I would really recommend that you do this course. Then if you want, those who want to do international assignments but which is not easy to get, you can do CFE, which is a US based organization, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. But in my humble opinion, it is not necessary. Your own degree as a chartered accountant is more than enough. I think that holds you in good stead. Then other steps to get visibility, I am just giving you my experiences. One is, try and contribute articles in journals, newspapers, because once people see that you are writing or you are talking about things like investigations, detection of fraud, research, academics, automatically your visibility will increase and you will start getting opportunities in this field. And try and get, and I am sure the institute also is always welcoming people who want to speak or who want to participate in conferences. These are the other platforms which can help you to boost your visibility in this area. And if you can do as much research as you can, spend about maybe half an hour every week to do research on different things that are happening in the world of fraud, economic crime, kinds of, let's say, new gadgets. Let's say you may come across a machine which can show check fraud, you may find some other invisible things. On the internet you can do the world of good to yourself by doing some research on this, but that knowledge can come into use anytime. And of course, the best thing to do is to empanel yourself with as many of these units where they require you, like the EOW, the police, the RBI, the banks, and public sector units. Each of course does have its own individual way and procedure of getting this empanelment, but I still say that it is worthwhile to do so, within of course our ethical parameters and how best we can go about this. So friends, this was basically what I wanted to talk about in terms of opportunities in forensic accounting, with a little bit of idea of what forensic accounting contains, what are the different simple forensic tests. But towards the end, I would just like to end with a small little suggestion to you, that sometimes I know people will feel that, okay, just because this field is there, it's not just possible for one to go and get an assignment very easily or to get opportunities for small people. Like there may be a lot of people in very small practices. You may have just one small office, you may have just one assistant, you may have a very you may not have sufficient infrastructure like a very big firm which may have more than 1,000 people, which may have computers, which may have audit software, which may have fraud investigation software. It is true, undoubtedly people who are stronger than you have a better chance. But I'd just like to draw your attention to a great person like Gandhiji. If you remember, what were the resources that Gandhiji had when he did the freedom fight? He had no resources. In fact, when he died, I believe that he had just a few hundred or thousand rupees to his credit, and there was nothing that he really had in terms of resources or wealth, but what he had was inner strength. That strength could move millions of people across India and could make the mighty British go. Now this is just an example that I want to give you, that it is very important in life that you have faith in three people. One is the Almighty God, the second is your guru or whoever whom you consider to be your mentor, and the third is yourself. You have it in you, you have that inner strength. Believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, friends, I can assure you nothing is impossible in this world. It is with these words that I say thank you for giving me this time, this opportunity to speak to you. Sorry for the technical issues in the middle. I do hope that I was able to come across clearly, but otherwise my email is given on that. It is cd1@chetandalal.com. Please do feel free to write to me for anything that was not very clearly understood. I have also a website which is chetandalal.com, and otherwise any person is always free to write to me. I will be happy to spend any time to upgrade myself as well. Thank you all and God bless all of you. Thank you very much. So now shall we take the questions? So I've got a whole lot of questions here. I've got 4 or 5 pages of questions. I don't know how much time do we have that I can attend to these questions. Okay, we have 25 minutes over here, and let me just give me a minute. Let me go through some of the questions and see which are the very important ones. Okay, one of the very common questions is, is there any course available in ICAI for specialization in forensic audit, and when the course is being held? So I think the institute will definitely give you an answer, but I also mentioned during my presentation that the ICAI's course on FAFD, that is Forensic Accounting and Fraud Detection, it's a certification course which will give you a certificate and which will help to upload your names on the website, will be the best possible course that you can do for this particular field, because it is entirely case study based. It will show you, it has 5 modules which includes what are financial crimes, which includes what are CATs, which includes what is an interviewing process, what are field investigations, and what are handwriting and other technical aspects that you can learn. So when all this is only based on real life case studies, so I would recommend that this course be done by those of you who are interested in pursuing this career. It will definitely give you a lot of help. There is a request which of course the ICAI will have to address, that they wanted to download the entire slide presentation. So that I think can be possible. The institute confirms that they will be able to give you these slides. Achha, somebody has asked me this question, that forensic audit is to be conducted yearly or 2 yearly, especially a time gap between the audit. Okay, let me just clarify. It's a very good question. See, a forensic audit is different from a risk assessment. A risk assessment should be regularly done, and it depends on the size and nature of the company and the circumstances in which the company is. Like if a company is doing well and the general audit reports and the internal controls etc. are quite fine, things are going on in a very good way, then you, as you said, you don't even need to do it every year. You can do it once in even 3 years also. It depends on the appetite of the management to go in for this kind of a risk assessment. But forensic audit is something which is done when something is suspected, something is alleged, or something is has gone wrong. Now that has to be done even in 10 times depending on the nature and the area where this problem has arisen. It's like the human body, like you may have a problem with your hand, you may have a problem with your eye, you may have a problem with your leg. So it doesn't mean that one year you do your head or one year you do your leg. It depends on the nature of the problem that you have. So forensic audit is to be done as and when the need arises, and of course you also look at the materiality and the situation that the company is in, because it can be quite unsettling as well. Okay, then is forensic audit an art or a science? I really like this question, so I am straight away answering this. It is basically a combination of both. What is a science? Science is something which is done in a systematic, structured and a mathematical way. It is. There are a lot of mathematical things or methods by which you can do a forensic analysis also. So it is to that extent very much a science. It is an art because there is variation, there is adaptation. You can't just have, okay, these are the 10 points. If you do this, you will catch the thief and you will find out what he has done and who are the 5 people who have done this robbery. No, it's not that way. You have to have an adaptation. You have to understand the situation, you have to adapt your mind, and you will be able to come out with a solution. So it's a combination of an art and a science. I would even put audit as the same thing, because even an forensic audit is nothing but a little step further, an advanced form of audit. Then can you recommend some good books for understanding this concept in detail and other suitable courses to be done for expertise in this field? I have already covered the second part of it, but the good books that are, the institute has got several good books on investigation audits. There is a book on special investigative audit which has recently come out. Then there are some books which show detection of frauds, case studies, then study of information in situation of incomplete records. And there is a book on novel and unconventional methods of conducting special audits and investigations. So if you were to go to the institute branch which is the closest to you, and you check the list of publications, I believe there are quite a few. Apart from that, if you browse to the net, there are books by Wolters Kluwer. There is one which is novel and unconventional method, which I have authored, but I'm not saying that you should read that only. There must be many other books which do exist, which are good in investigations. Plus you should read a lot of journals, the international journals, the CA journals from across the world. They also have usually some articles or some important issues relating to fraud which may be of use to you. Is there any standard checklist available? I would say, friends, that is the last thing that you should really do, because you must adapt. If there was a standard checklist, then I think the Companies Act itself would have said that please make sure that the auditors confirm this checklist. No, you may have a fraud checklist which is useful, but let that not be the only thing that you check. It is good to have a checklist, but never depend on it. For that, as I mentioned somewhere during the presentation, you must have a checklist of things which are not possible in an entity and things which are absurd or unreasonable. If you can make these kind of events and list them out, all your future assistants, even if your team changes, they will be in a position to identify those things where things could go wrong. Can a statutory auditor on his own refer to forensic audit if suspected fraud is done by management? I think there is no harm. I mean, of course, as far as I may stand corrected, but I don't think there is any law which prevents him from having a forensic audit conducted if there is a fraud by the management. In fact, according to me, it is the right thing for him to do. Of course, the cost and the mandate and all that will have to be within the overall mandate that he has, or he has to get his mandate extended by his appointing authority. But it's a good question. How does sampling methodology apply to forensic audits? This is also a very good question. Now, when we are talking of sampling, friends, what is sampling in audit? You try to get a sample which is a representative sample of the population on which you are supposed to express an opinion. Is that right? So the challenge is in trying to pick out a sample which is representative, and for this purpose there are lots and lots of books which are available which will tell you how to pick up a sample. There is random sampling, discovery sampling, judgmental sampling, and there are a whole lot of sampling techniques which are available. But in case of forensic audit, I have a recommendation, and for those of you who are interested, there is what we call a theorem which is called Benford's theorem. Now friends, that is the only theorem or only law in the world that I know of whereby you can go to that part of the population where there is a chance or a probability of a fraud or error, and it comes out with a reasonable 68% chance of success. Like for example, supposing you are checking say 1000 payments or 1000 transactions in a payment file. Now if you do random sampling, or if you do judgmental sampling, or if you do sampling above a certain amount, you are still not sure that or reasonably sure that you are coming across those transactions where there is a likelihood of replication, fictitiousness, or changes, alterations, whatever. But if you apply the Benford's law for the purpose of deriving a sample, there is a 68% chance that you might come to know which part of that population you should really be examining the transactions to be able to identify the fraud or error. So for those of you who are interested, you can surf the net and key in the words Benford's law or Benford's theorem. There are many websites which are available which will give you this information, and it is a law which is still being researched even as of today, and I think it is absolutely invaluable and priceless to auditors. You must do some research on this, and of course if any of you does enroll for the FAFD certification course, a special session is usually held on Benford's law. There is a question that is there any empanelment for forensic audit? I think there is an empanelment in banks, and they take or accept the institute's forensic accounting course for the purpose of their empanelment, and I think this is going to increase as more and more requests and requirements are going to come up in the foreseeable future. Empanelments will happen, but how and where will depend from unit to unit and company to company. There is one question, is the auditor legally liable for the finding of his forensic audit reports in court? No, I don't know whether he means his own forensic audit report or somebody else's forensic audit report, but I'll answer the question both ways. If an auditor has done an audit in a company and somebody else has done a forensic audit, can he be liable because something in the forensic audit states something which goes against him, or which shows maybe something which he has not disclosed or reported on? Yes, he can, he could be, again depending on the gravity of the situation, what was done, and of course the quality of the forensic audit that is done. Now supposing an auditor has himself done a forensic audit subsequently and he finds that something is wrong, he has to give very convincing reasons why he did not come out in the original report when he had done this audit, but according to me he would still be held liable. So a forensic audit report is one which is actually usable in a court of law, so much more weightage will be given to that rather than the audit report, and he would be, in my opinion, legally liable. How to handle obstacles while doing forensic audit? As you mentioned, people will mostly not cooperate. I think I'm very happy. This is a person, Mr. Sujit Nair, who has raised this question. Thank you, Sujit. So I knew that you were listening to me all throughout. I appreciate that. Okay. Let me just answer the question in two different ways. One is, you have a certain plan which you have started doing the forensic audit, and somebody who is not a part of the fraud or who is not suspected to be the fraudster, but somebody who doesn't want this investigation to go on, either because it is upsetting the normal rhythm, or it is a resource oriented issue, or some other reason. That case you have to be very respectful and very firm, and you have to say that, look, this is what I have been asked to do, this is my mandate. If you have an issue, you are welcome to go and speak to the appointing authority. I sympathize with you, but I have to go through this process. I will do my best to minimize the obstruction or problem for you, but I have to do it. I cannot not do it. I know it's not going to be easy, because it's going to be very, very tough, and ultimately we are all here because we also want that opportunity should come again in future from that company. You don't want to rub anybody the wrong way, but if you are firm and if your mandate has been clear, eventually that person will fall in line. However much he may raise objections, he may go to people, he may do exercises influence, to some extent there may be pressure on you, and it does come. I believe it or not, the pressure sometimes can be very intense, but that's what I said, the ability to bear it has to be there. There is no hard and fast rule of what I can tell you to go ahead with that, but it's best to use diplomacy but firmness. It's a combination of the two. And the second case is where somebody who's directly involved as a part of the fraud and whom you suspect is the mastermind or one of the possible culprits in this. Now that kind of a thing is a little easier to handle, because then when you can talk to the appointing authority and you can explain to him that this is what is happening because I am onto the right track, or I am likely to be going in the right direction, so and so objections are coming up, I need your help. Now here again two possibilities are there. One is that they will help you and they will try and minimize that resistance, and the other possibility is that they may not want to have foul relations with that obstruct of that party who's trying to stop you. In which case you have to be absolutely clear and say either you want me to go ahead with the investigation, or you say that I can't do. You get it in writing that you are not allowed to do this, or you are not allowed to say this. The moment you say that, people will withdraw and then they will allow you to go. So being firm is very important, and don't worry if they say that you are going to lose your assignment or lose your further association with them in the future, because I will tell you one experience. There was one case where I had given a report. After that report, the person concerned was removed from he was virtually like the CEO of that company. He was removed from there, and I felt very sorry. I did try to sort of make up with him, and I tried to call him several times. He would not pick up my call, and I realized that now, I mean, he's completely upset and unhappy with me. And I was very sad, but I still gave my report and went. But friends, what is important here that you would like to know is 2 years down the line, that same person came back to me and gave me an assignment in his new company where he had joined, where he wanted some investigation to be carried out. So eventually, even if you have a bad experience at one place, because you stood up for what you are, for being upright, results will come from somewhere else. As they say in Gita, you go ahead and do your work. Karmanya vadika raste. Don't be worried about the fruit. It comes, and it comes on its own. We have some time. What is the legality of forensic audit? Well, it depends on the appointing authority. See, like if a management appoints a person like me because there is some fraud that they have, the forensic audit report will be useful as its defense mechanism. Like if a case has been lodged in a court of law, then they can produce my report as a forensic audit report, and it can be useful over there. But supposing I have been appointed by the police, or I have been appointed by, let's say, somebody like NSCL, they are doing some investigation for some fraud that has happened there, then it can be a very big thing. It can be even given in press. It can be given to various different authorities. It can be to SFIO. It can be to the new authority under the Companies Act. The responsibility could be very high. The legality is unimaginably high in that. And overall, forensic audits will have a very strong legality. There is no question about that. Cameras to be checked. What information is sought for a forensic audit? Actually, the question is not clear, but when that person says cameras to be checked, means whether you can do recordings. I presume that is what the question is. No, actually, there is a legal issue in that. There are invasion of privacy rights that you must be conscious of. However, this is something which in each assignment you should check with the legal advisors, check with the company's policies, and then use cameras as and when you require. But the flip side of it is that when you use cameras in an investigation, you will find that the results of that investigation are far better, because you can reproduce something that a person has said on different occasions and see how the person has changed his words, changed his mannerisms. It can be a whole lot of difference. I think this more or less covers all different. You can have a look. Who all are eligible for fraud detection? I think as chartered accountants, anybody can do. Even as a chartered accountant, you don't even need the certificate of the forensic accounting. You have the necessary requisite qualification to carry out fraud detection. Is a newly qualified chartered accountant eligible? Yes, newly qualified chartered accountants are also qualified for the forensic accounting and fraud detection course, and I would very much recommend that they also join this, because that in their life ahead, in their lives ahead, this is going to become more and more important. Okay, there is a question here, what are the opportunities that are available for forensic audit in small and medium sized city? See here, what you can do is, now the world has become very small with the internet and with communications being what they are. See, even if you are in a very small city somewhere in Maharashtra inside, today you know that every kind of inquiry that is available through the net, like today you know that there is a big requirement at FMC for appointing certain auditors, there is a requirement with RBI, there is a requirement for with SFIO. What you have to do is you have to find out ways and means to see whether you can empanel yourselves with them. For the purpose of empanelment, there is again a separate thing that you have to do, is that one is whether you can do this institute's course which is there, which can help you to get your names registered on the website, or whether there is any direct method of getting registered over there. I am sure, I have not actually gone through them myself, but I am pretty certain that the need is so acute that they are always looking out for people. I believe that even in the recent past, the RBI, the FMC, they have actually asked the institute for a full list of people who are interested in doing these forensic accounting assignments. Maybe if to your nearest branch or nearest regional office, whether it is WIRC, NIRC or wherever, you can possibly find out whether you can empanel your names with the institute itself, and the institute in turn can probably give these names as and when these inquiries come up. Then what you can do, even a small firm, you can go to the nearest police stations, the crime branches, you can approach the some of these public sector units and actually speak to seniors over there and make your experience visible to them. These are places also where you may be able to get assignments. To some extent, yes, I wouldn't say you have to market yourself, but you should make your experience or your capability or your willingness to be able to help them. And in order to show this, sometimes you should be even willing to help them without expectation of a fee and say that, sir, I will be prepared to learn with you, because sometimes if you do one case for an authority, you may get so much experience that they on their own will come and give you more assignments in future. In fact, this is one of the short ways to get assignments in forensic assignment the right way and the good way. Otherwise, of course, also approach the bigger firms, the bigger chartered accountants, like say for example, if somebody approaches me and if I have a need, I will be only too happy to use, depending on which part of India or which part of the state I require some help from any of you. People like me are there. There are good chartered accountants who are willing to use these services. Friends, one thing just realize carefully is that the need is very much there. The need for forensics today is perhaps at its maximum than it ever was in the last 2 decades. The question is, how do you match the resources with the needs? And that's the place where maybe to some extent we may request the institute to chip in and see whether they can help some way, to some extent whether you can make an effort to find out how best you can get in touch with the people where the need is there. But even if you get a few negatives and if you don't get assignments immediately, please persevere. The results are always good. We are aware that the institute is promoting, this is a question from Ajit Anandan, we are aware that the institute is promoting awareness about benefits to the parties in utilizing the services of members empaneled on the ICI panel of forensic accountants. Are the opportunities expected only within the country, or does it extend to Indian enterprises out of India too? If yes, do you have any tips to the members empaneled to increase assignments abroad? Well, though there is no specific indication for me to say that it is only in India, I would guess that if there is a unit of an Indian company outside India, this should be applicable to those units as well. And there is no reason why it should be restricted only to India. Like say for example, if something is happening in Sri Lanka, and if that it's an Indian company which is having a branch over there, why not? We should be in a position to go and use the forensic accountants there as well. Now for members to do assignments abroad, yes, they have to have resources, they have to be able to spare that time, and these assignments, mind you friends, will come at the drop of a hat. So those of you who are in hardcore, let's say tax practice or in these audit practices, supposing that assignment comes in the month of September or in the month of June, you should still be prepared to go immediately. Like say for example, there is an insurance claim for loss of stocks and you have to go immediately to the place where there is fire. Even if it comes on 29th of July, You can't say that I will finish my returns and go on 2nd or 3rd of August. You have to go on 27th, you have to do it. So if your willingness is there to go ahead in these assignments, you have to go ahead. Then there is a question by CA Uday, is there any limitation ceiling on the number of forensic audits the way we have in tax audits? To my knowledge, no, I don't think there is any limit on that. Yeah. Okay, do the courses have internal recognition, international recognition? I would say that the courses have recognition in India, the Middle East, and our neighboring countries like say Sri Lanka and say Dubai, Muscat, and other places, because all these people in any case are chartered accountants, are working there, and they are already their qualifications recognized. So if they have a specialized qualification of this FAFD, I think it will be even more recognized. In fact, I had gone to Dubai 6-8 months ago, and they were also keen on having a forensic accounting course over there. So I would guess that yes, certain areas this international recognition is there, and this will also increase to other parts of the world, according to me, in the foreseeable future. After forensic accounting, can we say that accounts are 100% accurate? I don't know whether we should really give an answer, because I don't think there is any scope for any account to be 100% accurate. We can say that there is a greater degree of reliability in this. Is the present certificate course of ICI at par with international standards relating to forensic audit? Here it would be wrong for me to pass judgment, because I myself am the chief faculty, so I would be commenting on myself. The only thing that I can say is that there are not too many courses across the world on this forensic audit, and this course is based on actual real life experiences and case studies. So I think at least it would be a force to reckon with anywhere. It would be a match anywhere. I think that's all. We have covered most of the questions. I appreciate this great response that we have got over here. I am really delighted to have spent these 2 hours with you. Thank you all. Thank you so very much, and thank you to the institute and all over here.